What is an international organization? Generally, an international organization is a formal organization with members from three or more states that pursue specific goals. It can be an intergovernmental organization established by an intergovernmental agreement, and its members are states represented by their governments. Some examples are the United Nations, the World Bank, and regional organizations, such as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. International organizations can also be international non-governmental organizations, but their members don't officially represent governments. Hybrid organizations have members both inside and outside of governments. International institutions are synonymous with international organizations. However, the word institution has a broader meaning than organization. International institutions can be understood in political science as a set of rules and practices that prescribe behavioral roles, constrain activity, and shape expectations. These rules are used in world politics, such as international law and international norms. The term institutions can also be seen used as synonymous with regimes. International regimes are defined as principles, norms, rules, and decision-making procedures in a given area of international relations. The distinction between institution or regime and organizations can be understood when we think of organizations as institutions with walls and bureaucrats. For example, the Bretton Woods system was created in 1944 as a regime to govern international monetary relations by pegging currencies to the dollar and the dollar to gold. But it was fundamental to have an international organization such as the IMF. And what about global governance? It is when states, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, corporations, and other actors interact to help address global problems that other actors can't solve by themselves. It can be understood as a set of laws, norms, policies, and institutions that define, constitute, and mediate relations among citizens, society, markets, and the state internationally. Modern international organizations began in the mid-19th century when states created a small number of organizations to work together on specific issues such as health and trade. Many of the international organizations created in the 19th century originated in Europe in the wake of major violent outbreaks such as the Napoleonic Wars, the Franco-Prussian Wars, and the Crimean Wars. In 1815, the Central Commission for Navigation of the Rhine was established to promote free navigation on the Rhine River. In 1838, the Superior Council of Health was created in Constantinople to control outbreaks of diseases and promote sanitary measures. In 1856, as part of the Treaty of Paris, signed at the end of the Crimean War, the European Commission for the Control of the Danube was created to improve navigation on the Danube. The Congress of Vienna changed the techniques of diplomacy. It provided a way to balance power and deter aggression. The Concert of Europe consisted of Russia, Prussia, Austria, Great Britain, and France, and they would try to collaborate on certain matters of concern. Collaborations in the 19th century, however, often failed and did not produce permanent institutions. In the aftermath of World War I, a number of organizations were created to try to build a more peaceful world. The most important was the League of Nations, and aimed to achieve international peace and security by having member states agree to submit disputes with members or non-members for arbitration or judicial settlement. However, the League was unable to control the aggressive behavior of Japan, Italy, and Germany, and was unable to prevent World War II. In the aftermath of World War II, the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, later World Trade Organization, and the European Coal and Steel Community, later European Union, were founded between 1944 and 1951, and they are still powerful organizations. Hello everyone! Today we'll be exploring the evolution of international organizations theory from pre-World War II to today. Before World War II, early scholarship on international organizations appeared in the fields of diplomatic history and international law. Many of these studies analyzed multilateral treaties and compared institutional structures, but they were more descriptive than theoretical. Scholars compared these early studies to learning about an automobile by only looking at the blueprints rather than seeing how it actually works. In the post-World War II world, amidst reconstruction and the creation of major international organizations, the field of international relations emerged. A new journal, International Organization, was founded in 1947 to analyze these new institutions and their impact on domestic politics and the world. Many of the themes discussed in the 1950s are still relevant today, but there's a more explicitly social scientific methodology that has influenced the study of international organizations. As behavioralism became the dominant approach in political science in the 1960s, it also influenced the study of international organizations. Scholars focused on the political behavior of actors and institutions, often using quantitative methods. A significant amount of work was done on the United Nations, analyzing voting behavior in the General Assembly and national attitudes. However, as the Cold War unfolded and the UN proved to be little more than a sideshow, scholarly attention turned elsewhere. During this time, scholars were also studying the experiment of economic integration in Europe and its impact on the nation-state. The process of European integration challenged realist theories, and early scholars of integration theory were interested in how integration processes shaped political actors and their interests. Ernst Haas introduced the concept of spillover, while Karl Deutsch explored how shared values could create security communities that could eliminate war. In the early 1970s, the attention given to the study of formal international organizations started to decline. This was due to the widening gap between major global issues and the activities of these organizations. The Vietnam War, the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, and the oil crisis of 1973 were just some of the major events that either took place outside of traditional international organizations or showed how powerless they were in managing global problems. In the US academic world, both liberals and realists became more interested in studying how broader international institutional structures interacted with power, politics, and capabilities. This resulted in a focus on analyzing regimes. Regimes refer to the broad rules, norms, and principles that shape international politics. These can encompass traditional international organizations, but also go beyond them. For example, the international trade regime included the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the regular meetings of GATT contracting parties. Another example from the 1970s is the international norms and rules regarding nuclear materials. There were critics of regime theory, including Suzanne Strange, who called the concept woolly since it had been used to mean different things, from the very narrow to the overly broad. She argued that existing global structures reflected the US position as the system's hegemon and that power politics shouldn't be lost in the haze of regime analysis. This critique was in line with Kenneth Walt's seminal 1979 book, which had a major impact on the study of international relations. Realists view the state as the main unit of analysis in a world characterized by anarchy and assume that states seek power for their survival. Neo-realists, like John Mearsheimer, believe that powerful states may create international organizations as a way to maintain or increase their share of world politics. Realist Hans Morgenthau was critical of the idea that organizations like the United Nations could do away with power politics, arguing instead that the struggle for power is universal. The debate on the significance or autonomy of international organizations in world politics has been a central one in the field for many years, usually pitting the realists against other perspectives. Many of the most important scholarly contributions to the international organizations field have been attempts to show that international organizations do matter and how they matter. Now we'll discuss the history of neo-institutionalism. Beginning in the mid-1980s, scholars challenged the traditional realist views on cooperation and regimes. Robert Keohane developed a functioning theory of regimes that suggested regimes could lead to reduced uncertainty and increased opportunities for cooperation. This theory was later labeled as neoliberal institutionalism and became part of the larger research agenda of rational choice institutionalism. Neo-institutionalism was a major shift in the social sciences and extended beyond just the field of international organizations. Political scientists, economists, sociologists, and organizational theorists all contributed to this interdisciplinary movement. The idea was that institutions mattered and could shape political, economic, and social outcomes. Rational choice institutionalism evolved as an effort to extend and critique neoclassical economic theories. It is based on the assumption that individuals are rational and self-interested actors who pursue strategies to maximize their well-being. In this strand of scholarship, the focus was on how institutions provide a strategic context that shapes individual choice. In the field of international organizations, Keohane's functionalist theory of regimes is an example of rational choice institutionalism. One strand of rational choice institutionalism that emerged from the economics field was the new institutional economics. This strand of scholarship responded to neoclassical theories that treated firms as black boxes. The new institutional economists sought to explain organizational behavior and how firms are organized. They studied issues such as incomplete information, enforcement challenges, and decision-makers' cognitive limits. Another strand of rational choice institutionalism that emerged from the economics field was agency theory. This theory was premised on the idea that performance problems within firms arise from the delegation of authority from one actor to another. The central problem in agency theory is how to align the interests of the principal and the agent. The rise of new institutionalism in the mid-1980s was a major shift in the social sciences. It challenged traditional realist views on cooperation and regimes and led to the development of rational choice institutionalism. The field of new institutionalism has grown to include multiple strands of scholarship, including the new institutional, economics, and agency theory. International relations scholars have long divided the international organizations literature among the main traditions in the broader international relations field: realist, neorealist, liberal, neoliberal, and constructivist perspectives. While the realists and neorealists see international organizations as marginal actors, the constructivists and neoliberal institutionalists believe international organizations can be powerful actors in global politics. One of the most interesting debates in the field of international organizations is between neorealists and neoliberal institutionalists. Both groups share a rationalist approach but reach vastly different conclusions about the role of international organizations in global governance. Neorealists, such as Kenneth Waltz and John Mearsheimer, believe that international organizations do not play an important role in the international political system and are merely used as instruments by powerful states to pursue their interests. On the other hand, neoliberal institutionalists, such as Robert Keohane and Lisa Martin, argue that international organizations can have a significant impact on state behavior and cooperation. The constructivist research agenda in international relations began to emerge in the 1980s and rapidly grew after the end of the Cold War. Constructivists sought to analyze the role of ideas, values, identities, and norms in world politics, which were often ignored by the major international relations theories of the time. Constructivist research has focused on the factors that shape the interests and identity of states and the important roles played by social rules and culture in the creation of international organizations as well as their behavior. One example of this is the work by Barnett and Finnemore, who analyzed international organizations as bureaucracies and social creatures with independent sources of power and authority. Rationalists and others criticized the constructivist approach for focusing too much on the bureaucracy and not enough on the interests of international organization member states that can influence the organization's action and performance. They have applied principal-agent models to explain international organizations' performance, taking into account both the actions and interests of member states as well as the bureaucracy. Fearon and Wendt have argued that framing rationalism and constructivism as a debate is not useful given the philosophical and ontological commitments of each. However, this debate has brought attention to important issues such as international organizations' behavior and performance, why some ideas are captured by international organizations, and the meaning of international organizations' power. That's it for this video. Hope you learned something new today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more informative content like this. Thank you for watching.